Hello and welcome to the SBDC podcast. I'm your host Josh, and here at the SBDC we help small businesses with free one-on-one consulting and free resources just like this episode. You can see all the links and resources mentioned in this episode in the show notes down below. Alright, if you're looking to get started in government contracting, there are some socioeconomic certifications that can give you an edge in bidding for government contracts. In this episode, we'll cover the federal contracting certifications that you might qualify for and what you need to do to apply for them. In a future episode, we'll talk about California and some private organizations that can get you certified. But today, we're going to be talking about federal. Before we begin, check out our on-demand training library at SBDC.learnworlds.com for practical, informative courses to start or run your small business. And we have courses from filing an LLC to getting your licenses and permits. And all of our training courses can help you, as a small business owner, get started or grow. Now, before we talk about government contract certifications, we need to talk a little bit about contracts. There are a couple of different kinds of contracts that you can apply for or bid, so let's take a look at to see what those are. Now, there are a couple of different kinds. The two that we're going to be talking about are called set-asides. One is going to be a competitive set-aside where you have two small businesses looking to bid on the same contract to perform work or provide a product that is being purchased. The government can set aside the contract exclusively for small businesses. With a few exceptions, this happens to automatically for government contracts under $150,000. And for these kinds of competitive set-asides, sometimes there are some certifications that you might get that can help you in this bidding process. The other kind is going to be what's called a sole source contract. And this one can be issued without a competitive bidding process, but there's a little hitch to how that actually works. So this happens in situations where a single business can fulfill the requirements of a contract, but in some cases, sole source contracts can be published, publicly, but then can be marked with the intent to source from them solely. You can still bid on these contracts, but this is not necessarily set in stone with a sole source kind of intent. You can bid on these, and if there are enough bidders, the intent to sole source may be withdrawn by the government and will turn into a competitive bid. So there are some little quirks about how that might happen, and you can actually get access to other kinds of contracts during this process. So now that you understand a little bit about what contracting is, let's take a look at the first kind of certification that we might have. The first one is going to be the AA Business Development Program. Now, this is probably one of the most robust programs and actually helps socially and economically disadvantaged businesses. And so what that means is that it helps businesses who belong to specific communities. These business owners and business-owned corporations and businesses can be, Alaskan Native, community development, Indian tribes, Native Hawaiian organizations, or any socially disadvantaged kind of population. And so this could be really anything, or we'll go into actually how you can kind of take a look to see what your socially or economically disadvantaged groups are so that we can see if we qualify for those. Set aside or sole source contracts, but there's a little hitch about how this program actually works. Now, this program is a 9-year program, and what it is, it's only 9 years. So once you enter the program, your complete term is only 9 years. And you can actually be taken out of the program for a few different things, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, there are some requirements and some benefits of the program. And so, like I said, some of the benefits of the program are you do get access to more set-asides and sole source contracts. You're able to get into what's called a protege and mentorship program, which you can work with a larger company as the protege and get access to some of the resources and help from that business or organization. You can also get into joint ventures where you can establish some footing with established businesses so you can increase capacity and actually get into government contracting a little bit easier. And then also you do get some free training from the SBA, which will show you how that actually works, and you can get some training to get into the program and to further grow your business in the program. The 8A gives participants up to $7 million worth of acquisitions assigned to manufacturing for what are called the NAICS codes, and then $4.5 million for other acquisitions. So that's what happens when you get into the 8A program. You'll get access to a lot of these contracts that are available. But you also need to get some approval if you want to get into the larger contracts, if you're actually able to, based on your capacity. That may exceed 100 million, and so you'll need to figure out whether or not that is available to your business. 8A is really good for businesses who are just starting out and who can get into government contracting and want to grow their business to do government contracting full-time, or to actually get into just business in general and grow it. So there are some program qualifications. You must be a small business. You have not previously entered in the 8A program because, again, you only have 9 years to get into the program one time. You have to be 51% of you have to be a 51% owner and controlled by a citizen who is socially or economically disadvantaged. And we'll get into what that means. You also have to have a personal net worth of $850,000 or less, or adjusted gross income of $400,000 or less, with assets totaling $6.5 million or less. And that's where the economically disadvantaged part comes in, is that you actually have to provide information about your personal finances or the business finances to get approved for these numbers. And then you'll need to demonstrate good character and demonstrate the potential for success after you've been in business for at least 2 years. So like I said, the program's 9 years, and there are some other things that you want to get into or do before you can become a 8A certified. And so there are a few steps. The first step is you want to identify your NAICS codes. And if you've seen all of our other guides on government contracting, then that might actually look a little bit familiar to you. But for now, you have to understand your NAICS codes. So if you've gotten into government contracting before, you can actually look those up or use the ones you've already found getting into your spend research. The next thing you'll have to do is register in SAM, or otherwise known as the System for Awards Management. That is the primary portal for federal government contracting. And so once you sign up there, you can get what's called a UEI, or Unique Identifying Code, and you can get your PIN. And so once you're actually able to get into the system, then you're going to be able to put in your information about what certifications that you have so that you can actually start contracting with the government. And then the last thing is going to be the actual certification. So when we click on this, we'll go to what's called certify.sba.gov, and it does have a few resources that you can look at for the certification. And a lot of people miss this because they don't even know this actually exists. So right here, we'll let you know how to actually navigate this for the certification process. And so the first thing is going to be discover the 8A, which is what we already did. We figured out what the 8A does and how it works in government contracting. So the next one would be, should you apply? There are a couple of questions about whether or not you're ready to be government contracting, period, but also understanding what government contracting is at a high level and if your business qualifies. And so you can check out here about whether or not you are in the social demographic of the socially disadvantaged business. And like I said before, here is where you would be able to understand what that means for the certification. So once you figure that out, the next thing we want to do is go to apply. But before we actually apply for the certification, the next thing we want to take a look at is the application review. And the application review, it's a application that you can actually look at to see what questions they're going to be asking you. And so you can see all the questions here, different contents of the application, and different questions that you can kind of review to see what information you're going to need. This is pretty straightforward. A lot of it's going to be citizenship, how the business is set up, and other financial things. And so one of the other things you're going to need to do is, if you don't know any of the answers to these questions, you may want to have some documents ready for the certification. And so right here, we have gather documents. And based on how your business is going to be set up, there are different kinds of documents that you'll need to have. So under sole proprietorship, partnership, LLC, corporation, or entity and owned, which means you're an umbrella for another affiliate of another business. The other thing you'll need to understand is, once you have all of this stuff together and you're actually able to apply, there's what's called an annual review recertification process. And so, as I mentioned before, part of the certification is that you may be kind of disallowed to continue with the program. And so what that means is that there is an annual review to make sure that you are certified and that you can keep going with the program. And so under the annual review, there are some other things that you want to take a look at to make sure that you are complying with the certification. And so here are the documents that you're going to need to keep going. And there is another document checklist that you can take a look at so that you can stay compliant in the program and keep going so that you can be 8A certified. And really, that's all there is. A lot of times you'll see or we'll see companies come in who are looking to get 8A certified and don't know anything about this. A lot of this information is on the SBA.gov website, but a lot of people are not really sure what it means or how to actually navigate that. So that's literally what this episode is, so that you can understand what you're looking at and how to understand these certifications one by one. So the Women-Owned Small Business Certification is exactly what it sounds like. It's for women-owned small businesses looking to do government contracting. Women-owned small businesses, or the certification for them, is to really help level the playing field for women-owned business, for women business owners. And the government will limit competition for certain contracts to businesses that are specifically women-owned for federal contracting. This certification makes businesses eligible to compete with federal contracts and is reserved for the certified businesses. And again, we're talking more about set-asides, which means that it will give them a leg up. And if a contract is specifically set aside for women-owned businesses, they can be the sole bidders in this arena. Let's talk more about what it means to be a women-owned certified business and how to actually qualify for it. And so there are two kinds of women-owned certified business certifications. There's the regular one, and then there's the economically disadvantaged. Let's talk about the regular one first, because that's what most people are going to be kind of lumped into when they first start. And so the women-owned business certification is for small businesses who meet the SBA size standards. And if you're not really sure if you are considered a small business, you can check out the standards here, and you can understand what how big your business is, and if you are a small business according to the federal government. But for the women-owned small businesses, they need to be at least 51% owned and controlled by a woman who is a citizen and manages the day-to-day operations and make long-term decisions. And a lot of this stuff will be in the certification documents that we'll talk about when we get to that part of applying. But really, that's all you need to know is your business 51% owned by a woman? Do they manage the day-to-day operations? And are you a small business? For the women-owned business certification, that's all you need to know. Now, there's an additional certification to be an economically disadvantaged women-owned business. And so what that means is that there are a couple of additional requirements. Again, you have to be a woman-owned small business, have to have those first three qualifications, but additionally, you need to be owned and controlled by one or more women with personal net worth, and this is where the economically disadvantaged part of it comes in, less than $850,000. You must be owned and controlled by one or more women with $400,000 or adjusted gross income of averaged over the last 3 years, and $6.5 million or less in personal assets. And that's where the economically disadvantaged part comes in. You'll have to provide proof of those things. And again, we'll get into that when we get to the application. But the next thing we need to kind of take a look at is to actually apply. And when we go to, again, certify.sba.gov, and we can choose under the women-owned small business section, we can take a look to see what our requirements are for the actual application. And the first thing we want to do is take a look at either should I apply, which also talks about, like the 8A, what details you have. Are you a small business? Are you a citizen? And such. But once you understand whether or not you're eligible for this as a small business, the next thing you want to take a look at is get started. And get started, there are 3 basic steps. Again, you want to register for SAM, System for Award Management, and you want to have your information updated there, because that's when you'll apply your certification so that you can actually get set-asides and things. The next thing, and this is going to be new, is you're going to be able to create an account with the SBA. And creating an account here is going to be connect.sba.gov, and you'll just fill out the information about your small business so that you can apply for the certification. And finally, we're going to claim your business on Women-Owned Certified Business, and here's where you log in. Again, it takes you to the same place so that you'll be able to actually apply your certification. Or before you actually start applying, there are a couple of other things you want to take a look at to see what information you're going to need. So if we go up here at prepare, you can actually prepare for this certification, and you can check out a couple of different things. Now, here's the eligibilities that we talked about before, but here there are some checklists that you can take a look at. So for a woman-owned small business, if you're doing the regular one, you can check out the checklist that you'll need for all of your information for the business. And then once you have those checklists done, There is one other thing you can take a look at before you do the application, which is also here, and this is called the knowledge base, where you can find out the frequently asked questions for your business and also take a look at the application as well, just like the 8A, so that you can understand what that certification is going to be asking you so that you can prepare yourself for the application itself. So the next one on our list is going to be the veteran-owned business certification. And again, this one is split into two types. So let's take a look at both. All right, so the veteran-owned certification is going to be, again, for sole source and set-aside contracts, mostly with the Department of Veterans Affairs. That's who was certifying you at the beginning. Now it's all under the umbrella of the SBA. But the VA has set-asides of about 7% of its contracts each year for veteran-owned certified businesses and what are called service-disabled businesses. So let's take a look at each one. So the veteran-owned small business is going to be for veterans who have veteran status and who own the small business itself. And so what that means is that it's going to be, again, a small business under the SBA standards and have some corresponding NAICS codes in SAM, which you'll have to, again, register for to do government contracting. Just like the women-owned small business, you'll have no less than 51% of the business owned and controlled by one or more veterans. And for the service-disabled part of it, there's going to be an additional qualification that you need to be set up or designated as service disabled when it comes to your veteran status to be a service disabled business. And so to get this, there are some other things that we have to go through to apply. It's not necessarily the same as the women-owned small business, so there's actually a different portal to get this done. And so here we have the VetCert portal, which is still run by the SBA, but it's a completely different portal than it was before. And so the setup for this is going to be slightly different. What we'll do is we can take a look at, again, the certification eligibilities. Are we at 51% ownership by a veteran? Are they registered in SAM? And do they belong to the SBA small business standards? If everything looks good, then what we'll do is we'll go down and we'll need to register in SAM and then apply for the certification. And so what that means is that we'll just register here and you'll register your account. Now this is similar to creating the account for the SBA, but it's pretty much the same thing. You'll just put in your information about the business, your personal details, and answer a security question so that you won't be locked out of your account. And that's pretty much it. There are some other things that you can actually take a look at as far as eligibility and whether or not you have the information that you need for the business. But to be a veteran, I couldn't stress this enough, to be a veteran for veteran-owned status, you would need your DD-214, which is the form that you would need to basically designate yourself as a veteran. Or if you have the service-disabled veteran-owned small business, that there is some designation there that you are service-disabled, any percent for that designation. So just make sure that you have that information before you apply for that certification. And I did want to stress that there are some checklists and other information. So if you do want to check this out, you can. Again, this does have the same information about the application and what you'll need. So here is going to be sam.gov, the 51%, and the small business. And then you can also take a look at what information. These are frequently asked questions for different kinds of businesses and what you'll need to submit to the SBA for the certification. And there are some other information here. If you do need help, you can contact the VetCert at the SBA. All right, so our final certification is going to be HUBZone. HUBZone is a little bit different because it's not really based on who you are as a small business, but where you're located. And so the government limits competition for certain contracts in historically underutilized business zones, or what are called hub zones. And it gives preferential consideration to those businesses who are located in those hub zones. What is the benefit for being in a hub zone? Well, the benefit is that if you are a HUBZone certified business, you can get a 10% price preference on open contracts when you're applying. And so what that means is that if you are bidding on a contract and the next bidder is under you, if you are a HUBZone business, you get a 10% price preference. And so if that 10% brings you under the bidding of the next best person who is not HUBZone certified, and that makes you the lowest bidder, then you actually can get the contract. So let's take a look at what the eligibility might be. And so to be a HUBZone qualified business, again, you need to be a small business under the small business standards. And you can take a look at that here. You have to be 51% owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen, CDC, agricultural cooperative, or Alaska Native Corporation, Native Hawaiian organization, or Indian tribe. You'll have to have the principal office located in what's called a hub zone. And we'll take a look at that because there are some changes that the hub zone made. And so if you want to take a look at to see what your location of the business is, or where you're located and living in a hub zone, there is a map here that you can click on and you can see where the business is located. When you find where your business is located, then you can get a better idea of whether or not you're a qualified HUBZone business. But that's not all. So what we'll need to understand is living and operating in the HUBZone is not the be-all, end-all for the business. There are a couple of other things that we need to take a look at so that we can get qualified. These are going to be the first steps in getting certified and applying for the HUBZone as a small business. Again, we'll need to make sure that we have a sam.gov account, and we'll also need to register for the SBA Connect, just like we did for the women-owned small business. There's an instructional video that you can actually take a look at to see how you are actually able to apply for that account and get into it. But once we have all of those things together, now we can actually start applying. Now, before we apply and actually do the application, there are a couple other things that we'll need to submit to get the certification complete. So one of the first things is going to be the supporting documentation. And this is going to be your checklist for all of the documents that you're going to need so that you can actually are able to provide those to the SBA. And so what those are going to be principal office requirements. So do you have a lease agreement or deed, a utility bill, and is the HUBZone or is the principal office address in the HUBZone location? The next thing you're going to understand is that there are 35% HUBZone residency requirements for you as the business owner or for your employees. And so you'll need to provide that information to check that. So we have the firm location and employee information. We'll have to have payroll records, proof of HUBZone residency, which may be a utility bill or a rental agreement for them. The employees' addresses are within the map, and you can check that, and the job description of the employee themselves. Under Part 3, you'll need to have the ownership and control requirements, so proof of citizenship, your incorporation or formation documents, if you have any affiliate information, if you're under another entity, or your certification form, and you'll have a signature sheet for that. If you thought that was not enough for your documentation, there is one more thing you'll need to have for the application, and that's going to be an eligibility workbook tool. And what this is that you'll need to take that information that you have, and you'll need to input that information, such as the location, the principal office, and all of the other financial information for the business. So you'll need to have all that and then be able to submit it to the SBA for the application. You'll have to also understand that once you apply for the certification, that if anything changes in the business, you have an employee who moves, or if the business itself moves, you'll need to notify the SBA, or if you're involved in some kind of merger, acquisition, or the residency drops below 20% while in the HUBZone or performing a HUBZone contract. Any certification made for the information provided as part of the HUBZone application, we can do through what's called a recertification process. And so here is the checklist for that. If you're looking to recertify, if anything changes, you can take a look to see the instructional video here or the information that you'll need to submit to the SBA to make sure that you are still compliant with the certification. Getting certified in government contracting is a great way to gain an edge in the market as a small business. Now, however, you need to be aware of what agencies to target and the likelihood of the set-asides when it comes to certifications. Now, you may not need to be certified to bid on specific contracts, and being certified isn't a guarantee that you'll get a contract at all. So you want to make sure that you have that spend research available to you so that you can make an informed choice about whether or not you need to be certified for government contracting. But if you found this episode really helpful, give us a like, share with your friends or family members who might be business owners, and subscribe to the podcast to get updates on all of our newest episodes when they come available. I'm Josh from the University of La Verne Small Business Development Center, and we'll see you in the next episode.